Hello everyone and welcome to our last Quay Words event of this season. Thank you very much to Arts Council England for supporting the season so far. If you haven't heard of Quay Words already, this is a partnership between Literature Works and the Exeter Canal and Quay Trust, and the idea is to make a hub for literature at the Exeter Custom House, which is on the quayside in Exeter. Sadly not there today due to the COVID pandemic, but we're hoping to get back there next year with lots more activity. So it's a bit of a different event for us tonight. We're going to be talking about football, and I'm really pleased to have with me Rob Casey, who is the Bard of Exeter City, and he has been since 2016, and Rob regularly writes original poetry for the Grecian, which is the club's matchday programme. We are also going to have a discussion about why football is good for Exeter, and that's going to be Gillard, who is a trustee of the Exeter City Supporters Trust, and we're going to have David Goldblatt, who is the acclaimed sports writer and journalist. His most recent book is The Age of Football, the Global Game in the 21st Century, and they're going to be talking about the importance of supporter ownership tonight. But first of all, I'm going to hand over to Rob to read some poems. Just to say that while Rob is reading, we're going to turn off the chat for the event so as not to distract the speakers, but we will have a section after David and Doug have spoken where you can ask a question. If you'll see, there's an ask a question button at the bottom of your screen there, which if you fill in, we'll hopefully get the chance to ask a few questions of Doug and David later. And also one more thing, we will have a feedback survey, which is so helpful if people can fill in. So we'll be sending that to you at the end of the event. Okay, thanks very much, and over to you, Rob.
Thank you very much. So yeah, hi, I'm Rob. I've been writing and performing poetry for about 20 years now. I've always been a real passionate football fan, but it's only really been the last 4 years that I've started writing poetry about that. After becoming the Bard of Exeter as the city, I spoke with the football club and we agreed that I would take over as being the official club poet. And there's not many clubs in the country that have a club poet. But in the last 4 years, I've been tasked with writing a poem for every home game. And that's generated over 100 different poems about football that I've produced. You'll be glad to know I won't be sharing all 100 of those with you tonight, but I have picked out a selection of them. So as someone who loves the beautiful game, I thought I would start with one about my love. It's called An Unconditional Love. You look deep in thought, she says, and she's absolutely right. My mind is on the problem that had kept me up last night, whether two holding midfielders instead of just one sitting deep frees up the front four or puts more pressure on the wingers to stay wide, leaving the top two exposed. Yes, sorry, I say. No, don't be. I'd love to know what's going on inside that fascinating brain. Oh, I was just thinking about whether a lack of midfield width can be adequately compensated by attacking fullbacks, or if two well-organised banks of four is a universal rule never to be tampered with. About? She asks. About how beautiful you look tonight, I say. The way your natural symmetry seems like the craftsmanship of a divine force, like the fundamental laws of physics are epitomised in your perfection. I say, still thinking of 442 and the way the pupils in her eyes dilate like little dark footballs. So that one is dedicated to my long-suffering wife. This next piece is inspired partly by, well, it was inspired by one thing really. This evening is it's about the greatness of what football can do for Exeter, and is going to, I'm sure, touch upon themes of inclusion and inclusivity, but rivalry is another key part of football, and that's explored here. So many of you might recall that Exeter City beat Plymouth Argyle 4-0 last year, and I thought, well, I've got to gloat. So this is called Entitled to Gloat. There's a time and place for gloating, and if you can't remind people we beat Argyle 4-0 at the next home game, when can you? You probably can't at a wedding, when invited to speak now or forever hold your peace. That isn't the time and nor the place still to yell from the back, We beat Argyle 4-0. You probably can't when a police officer informs you that you have the right to remain silent, but it may harm your defence if you do not say anything you may later rely on in court. That isn't the time, and nor the place still, to mutter, we beat Argyle 4-0. You definitely can't if your significant other questions you about the used underwear they discovered in your coat pocket, not belonging to either of you. And you absolutely can't with family gathered around your bed, listening lovingly to your last breath for a whisper of wisdom, a sliver of sentiment on all that they have meant to you throughout your life. But most other times and most other places are completely fine because, well, the truth remains still. We well and truly hammered Argyle 4-0. Which we did, of course, although they got promoted and we didn't, but I'm not going to talk about that. Sometimes I like to write about current events, things that have happened that don't necessarily relate to the club or my own personal experience. And I was particularly struck at a point last year in I think it was a lower league non-league game where a referee forgot his whistle and had to adapt. And he used a harmonica instead of the whistle, which once upon a time would have been absolutely fine because the rules of our beautiful game have developed over a number of years. And this got me looking into the history of the whistle. That's the sort of thing I do in my spare time. This is called playing to the whistle. A referee's technology has always caused controversy. This history, I'll keep it brief, all starts off with a handkerchief. Then, in the 19th century, the Acme Whistle Company produced a tool for Met Police to help them with restoring peace. Well, waving hankies in the air led referees to much despair, as hankies, though their strengths abound, are just no good for making sound. And so, once it was mass-produced, the whistle was then introduced, although official rules weren't fixed right up to 1936. Until that time, for decades still, a referee could wave at will, or even, if they wanted to, they could have blown a kazoo. Imagine if they played the flute, or strummed a zither or a lute, a hurdy-gurdy mandolin, or pecked around a theremin. Perhaps, for its simplicity, the whistle's best for referees, and we can say, oh, hallelujah, that they don't play the ruddy tuba. So technology has come on a long way since the initial creation of the whistle. And one of the things that we have now, one of the great art forms in the game, is the goal celebration GIF. When a player scores a GIF of them celebrating or mopping their brow or whatever it might be, it goes on the social media. I won't go into the details, but it achieved quite a lot of fame early this season when the club revealed the GIF for Alex Hartridge, who is traditionally a defender and was never expecting to score, but has actually scored several times this season. And we've been treated to the club's goal celebration GIF. This is a poem about GIFs. It's called The Gifts That Keep Giving. Well, opera and ballet are high forms of art, and classical music's a whole class apart. Composing librettos takes loads of skill, but there is one art form that's far greater still. Yes, painting and sculpture have much to admire, and massive wall tapestry sure can inspire. Some pottery properly looks well impressive, yet these ain't the arts that appear most expressive. Oh, many here, may claim literature can't be surpassed, with poetry proudly sat top of the class. Though Shakespeare, if he were alive here today, would do something else for his craft and his pay. You see, there's one genre of human endeavour that will be acknowledged the greatest forever, the art form that stands quite apart from the rest, the goals celebratory GIF. It's the best. In seconds, a GIF can convey deep emotion, and so it deserves the strongest devotion, intensity, focus, variety too. In terms of invention, it's head of the queue. So yes, graphics interchange format is king. To celebrate goals, there is no finer thing. The greatest of art forms, the height of all living, humanity's zenith, the gifts that keep giving. Now, apparently it's supposed to be pronounced GIF, but everybody that I know pronounces it GIF, and it makes more sense too, so that's what I'm going with. Now, as you can tell, I write poetry more than playing football. If truth be told, I'm not the best at football. I'm okay, but I do sometimes have my moments in five-a-side football. So that's what this is about. It's called Five-a-Side Hero. I'm a five-a-side hero, as long as we apply a somewhat liberal, perhaps, postmodern interpretation of the term hero. Despite getting more abuse than passes, I will be there with my gut and dodgy knee, sweating profusely and trying not to be sick, like a hero. I'm a hero from 6 yards or so. When it comes to tracking back, alas, I'm lacking. Fitness not what it was, you see. Did I mention my dodgy knee? Though, to be honest, I'd be wasted anywhere else except up front, waiting for that hopeful punt. But when it comes, you can bet 1 in 3 or 4 shots will find the net once I've got my eye in. I'm a five-a-side hero with a goals per game ratio, the envy of Ronaldo, who, to be fair, doesn't play most of his games against 6-year-olds. So many of you watching and listening might be far more proficient at football, but many of you won't. And I've certainly had my fair share of time of being the last to be picked in PE or games. But I didn't give up. I kept going. And though it was rare that I would ever be the first to be picked, it was a case of making some small gains. This one is called The Last to be Picked, and it's dedicated for anyone who's ever had that experience of being at the end of the queue when it comes to joining a new team. I bet I'm the last to be picked. I'm always the last to be picked. If only they passed, I might not be last, but wait for it. Yeah, there it is. And you can have him, they inflict. The words that we all could predict, the dregs in the cup. Why bother turn up again? I'm the last to be picked. Will this time be different? We'll see. The last to be picked, is it me? A new kid arrives. He's blind in one eye and only has one of his feet. He's also forgotten his kit, but that doesn't matter a bit. The captain's his friend, so I'm at the end. Again, I'm the last to be picked. Now, surely they won't pick me last, as finally somebody passed. I scored on the volley. I bet they were sorry to rule me out ever so fast. I showed that I won't be outclassed. My goal-scoring skills are so vast. It's time for the picking, for twisting or sticking. They stick, and again, I'm picked last. I'm not giving up quite so easy. I may be too slow and too wheezy, too useless, too clumsy. A sloth could outrun me, and exercise makes me feel queasy. But just once is all that I ask, when being the worst is surpassed. My moment of glory, a different story. Get in! Yes! Picked second from last. Okay, I've just got one more for you in this set before I hand back over to some fantastic speakers and a great discussion that's ahead of you. This one is about the fact that fans have now returned to football, finally, for the first time since March. But this was written at the start of, I think, a previous season to welcome the fans back, because the ground just isn't the same without you, and it's called Without You. St James Park has a history. Its mortar tells a story rich with characters, with action, with heartbreak, and yes, it has been known with glory. Some characters wear jerseys, with tracksuits, boots and bibs. Some wear aprons, some wear jackets, others wear high vis, or dress up as a lion to entertain the kids. But those who make the place feel right will come dressed up just as they like, in face paint, with flags, with banners and bagfuls of hope that today might be the day. Today might be the day for an "I was there" display, for a goal from out of nowhere, or a rare "surely he won't, he has" to take your breath away for the extraordinary. Today's might be the game to say I went absolutely nuts, gave some poor bloke a hug that nearly killed him, and I cheered so much nearly gave myself a stitch. Game days make memories, not just from on the pitch, but in the stands. St James Park is nothing without you, the fans. You're singing, you're jumping, your fists all are pumping. It's you who make the game. No Saturday is the same. And so we hope to see you there, to see you more. This ground is you, the club is yours. You make it all complete. When match days come and you're around, we've never heard a finer sound. So thank you for a special time. Let's do this again, your place and mine. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thanks so much, Rob. That was brilliant. So now we're handing over to Doug and David for our discussion part of tonight. They should just be coming up onto screen any second now. Hi, David.
Hiya.
Hello, Doug.
Hello, Doug.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Doug.
Excellent. Yeah. Good evening. Good evening, everyone listening and watching. So how are we going to do this? Do you want me to start?
Sorry, say that again, Doug. You broke up a little bit.
Do you want me to start? I'll turn my volume.
Yeah, why don't you kick off?
Well, my name's Doug Gillard. I'm a trustee and the group leader of the community working group at Exeter City Supporters Trust. A little bit about the trust. The trust started in 2000. We celebrated our 20-year anniversary this year. It started very, quite slowly. The main aim when we first started was to raise funds for a player called Gary Alexander. That's how the trust started. The talkings were about in May 2000, but the first recorded meeting of Exeter City Supporters Trust was the 5th of July 2000, and we progressed since there, just still doing things like that, smaller operations and things. The change happened on around 2003, and I've actually managed to, I don't know if I've got mirror image here, I've managed to dig, it is a mirror image. That's the programme, and it's dated the Saturday the 3rd of May 2003. A day that most Exeter City fans will remember, not for the good reasons. It was the day, even though we won, we dropped out of the Football League into the National Conference. And 11 days after that, I think it was HMRC and the police turned up at St James's Park, and our two chairman and vice chairman, I'm not even going to mention the names, were arrested for, I think the politest way to say it is financial irregularities. I think we'll leave it at that.
Oh, go on, Doug, be impolite.
Yeah, okay. They had a very, very strange web of finances that no one could unravel. And one of them served 21 months in jail for his part in it. The trust, as some trusts do, they seem to become owners of last resort, because no one else wanted the club. The fans took over. I mean, there were a few people at the beginning: Ian Huxham, Julian Tagg, David Trahan. Apologies to anyone who I've missed. There are some other people. Simon Armitage was David Trahan's solicitor, who did a lot of work. And we then became owners of the club. We entered into a CVA, and I believe we're still the first and only club ever to successfully avoid a points deduction. And I think after we managed to get our points deduction revoked, they went back, had a look at the rules, and made them pretty watertight. The best part that happened for the club was when we drew 0-0 with Manchester United in 2005 in the third round of the FA Cup. That generated around £1 million for the club, made us debt free, and since then we've gone from strength to strength. We now have parity on the club board. It's a 4 and 4, so the club board and the trust board have an equal amount, and we're getting better as we go on. I think our current shareholding is 53.1%, but that may change soon. It might have changed already because we're having a look at our shares, and I'll leave it at that.
So tell me, I'm really interested to hear, how does that make Exeter, do you think, feel good or feel better? Thinking just about well-being. I was really struck when listening to the poems, that line about making the place feel right when you've got the crowd in it. And there is something about being at a football match that makes you feel all right, that makes you feel something's right with the world, like irrespective of what the score is. And I just wonder how that works for you when you're at Exeter.
I think sometimes, I mean, given the history that, I partly explained, is sometimes it is you don't know what you've got until it's gone. And we nearly lost something that I feel is so valuable to our community. I mean, like you say, I mean, we had a chat the other day, and sometimes football supporters are, in a good way, very tribal, and they're very passionate people. I mean, there used to be, there used to be these T-shirts used to say football, wife, kids, in that order. And I mean, that's the sort of people you're dealing with that are so passionate about the game and, their colours, and I think that's the part of it. The thing, they turn up week in, week out, no matter what happened last week, they'll be back. And I think it's that sort of passion and, the support and the camaraderie you get between people that makes them want to belong. And I think that's what we try and do at Exeter, so make people belong to something that's really good and really special.
Because it's about we, isn't it? I mean, I don't know about you, but I get really fed up with me, I. And going to football is a place that's about us. It's not about me. If it's just me in the crowd, it's completely useless. If it's one player on a team, that's no good. It's about collective action. It's about us. And I don't know about you, I don't feel like I get enough, usness in my life. And that's what's one of the things that sort of, that amazing sense of being part of a gathering crowd, which I get, walking up the Gloucester Road in Bristol towards Bristol Rovers Stadium, and the sense of something bigger than oneself, being like more than your sum of your parts. Is that part of your match day pleasure or ritual? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, and sometimes when you go there, even people you don't know, you'll see. And sometimes you do people watch. And you'll be sat there and you'll think, right, it's 20-3. He's going to finish his beer in a minute and he'll be gone. And then and you just pick up on other people and you people watch, and you learn a lot about people without even ever speaking to them. I mean, I went back last night. Obviously, the result was unfortunate, and sometimes even the things that annoy you are good. I mean, I think at every ground you'll get the guy that will sit there and just moan at the lino, assistant.
Oh, absolutely,
all the time. And these are the people that make your club. He's annoying.
They're part of the furniture.
That's what he does.
There's a great pleasure I get. Occasionally, I go and see Bristol City. I have friends who have season tickets and they're forever. Well, they were trying to convert me, but I think these days they think I'm a bad luck charm, actually, when I go there. Anyway, they sit in front. Well, they used to sit in the old stand. There was a guy who, regular as clockwork, half-time, brought out a plastic bag of boiled sweets and passed them round a select group. And that was like one of the great pleasures, that rhythm, that little connection, And then there's a guy who sits in front of them. You've probably got one of these at Exeter. And he's got quite a rib of flesh on the back of his neck. And the colour of it changes according to how City are playing. Like, and when it's not good, it's very bright red, and he's not happy. And that's part of, again, the sort of like strange human connections that you make at a football game. Tell me, Doug, who do you go? Do you go to the football by yourself, or do you always go with someone?
I go with my son. My son's 14.
Right.
Right. I've got this absurdity that my two boys, my 14-year-old loves football, just won't stop talking about it, never shuts up. My other son can't stand it. I took him to football once and he did his school homework at the game.
Okay, well, at least you're getting a 50% hit rate, which is better than I'm doing with my two, believe me.
But and I think that's part of it, you know, the wellness and why football's good for Exeter, why football's good for families, because, you know, it's like the dad, you know, the excitement. I'm taking my boy to football, you know, or now it's even better. Is, you know, families go, wives, husbands, sons, daughters, they all go, and it's the cycle. It's, you know, these children, like the boys and the girls, they'll grow up, they'll, you know, form relationships, they'll get married, they'll have kids of their own, and they'll go to football, and it's like a circle that keeps going round and round and keeps generating. And
so many people I know tell their own personal stories and how their own personal stories connect to something bigger through the story of their football club. It becomes, you know, like the narrative of one's life. And, you know, you're not, I mean, from what I can see, only about 10% of people go to football by themselves. 90% of people are going to football with their friends, with their families, in a kind of network of connections. And that's just central to the experience, I think, you know. And again, we have so few places where we kind of, very publicly mix with all sorts. I feel like we live quite divided, geographically, socially segregated lives. And football's just like, it really is all sorts there, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's true what you say. Sometimes, you know, you'll be standing next to someone, you know, because we still have terraces down in League One and League Two, and it may be someone, you know, you've never seen before, you've never met before, and something will happen, and you'll mumble something, they'll hear you, and even if it's only for like a 5-10 second conversation, it is that kind of interaction you get with someone, you know, that you've never spoken to. I mean, when I took both my boys up to Wembley, and obviously you have to get the tube, and we used to have this joke. I mean, because we went a couple of times, there used to be the joke, you know, when you get onto the tube, you know, don't look at anyone, you know, don't make eye contact, look at your phone or pretend you're asleep, you know. And this is sort of like, don't interact, and it's sort of like a different thing with football. You know, there's so much interaction because you're there, you know, you've got, you know, 2, 3, 4,000 people all there for the same reason, you know, to watch a game of football and to watch, you know, their heroes. And I think some of it is very oldie worldy, isn't it? I mean, you know, you've got these people singing songs of their heroes.
Sure.
You know, and
I mean, I think
songs I've heard.
It's nostalgia. There's a lot of nostalgia for a lost world. I mean, in the sense that, you know, football, despite all the money, all the razzmatazz, is still basically the game of industrial working class England. You know, the names, the geography, the feel of the game still speak of, you know, mid-century England, and the kind of, the sort of collectivities and solidarities of that. And I think that's a big part of the pleasure of it, is that people are reconnecting with some of that. I mean, has it struck you? I don't know whether you've thought about this, but players, right, still earn wages, right? We always thought players' wages, right? And I think, hold on, aren't wages like a 10 bob note in a brown envelope at the end of the week in a factory? And this lot are getting salaries paid monthly electronically into some offshore bank account, probably. You know, that's not wages, that's a salary. But we still speak of it as if it was like people were working down the factory. It always makes me laugh when they say gaffer as well, even the foreign players, right? I mean, when was the last time you actually encountered a gaffer? Like a real gaffer on a building site? There's not many of those left.
I think it's also used in the film industry as well, and I've never met one. And
I mean,
but yeah,
gaffers, the like, you know, is the foreman on the building site. You know,
yeah,
like back in the day, that's like, you know, when I was a kid, like working on a building site, there were still people talking about gaffers, like the foreman, but there are no gaffers. I mean, Arsene Wenger's many things, but he's not really a gaffer like that. But that's the kind of,
right.
it evokes that. And like you say, singing, doing things collectively. Again, we don't do that very much. It's a very special thing. What's the singing? And people say singing is really good for you. You know, being in a choir is really good for you. You know, like letting it all out is really good for you. What's the singing like at Exeter? What do you like best about it?
It's some of the songs you can't repeat, obviously, but obviously we had a talisman player called Adam Stansfield, and I think it's 9 years now because the number 9 shirt's just been reintroduced, and there was a song for him. It wasn't you know a like an intricate song. The you know the lyrics of it, so to speak, weren't amazing, but it's a song that people would just sing, and they'd sing it with passion as well. And I think, was it sing a song, make it simple? But you know, and I think, you know, people used to sing that and that sort of song, and some, you know, I think that sort of gets on the players as well, because if the supporters are being passionate, you know, I mean, it will G the players on. So
For
you know,
sure.
I think it's all part
And
of
affects
it.
the referees by the looks of it. I mean, the data that's coming out of the era of lockdown, no crowds, is that referees are definitely giving less yellow cards to to away players, because the crowd's not on them in the same way. It's like a really big statistical difference. What was it like to go back, Doug? How was it to walk back into the stadium for the first time?
I had to be in 45 minutes before kickoff. I'm not one of those people. I mean, we've got a great thing called the Feck Race. It's a real ale and cider bar that's sort of like run by volunteers, and we'll get to those soon. And I was one of those people that, you know, they'd be saying, "Oh, the game's going to be kicking off soon," and I would literally be getting through the turnstile just as you could hear the ref just about, you know, just blowing his whistle to kick the game off. But yeah, I had to be in 45 minutes before kickoff yesterday. I think they've done it in alphabetical order. So I think if it continues, I'll change my name by deed poll to Xavier or something, just to get in there a little bit later. But it was a little bit quiet. I mean, we only had 750 in yesterday, but I suppose it was a good test for the club to see, you know, how things are going to work out, and a good test for the stewards, and everyone behaved themselves. I mean, our volunteers and the people we have around the club are fantastic. Like I say, the result wasn't great, but everyone understood what they had to do, why they were doing it, and from what I could see in the main, everyone, you know, performed admirably, both spectators and the people behind the scenes.
Yeah. And how did it feel like returning home, or did it feel like coming home after there's been a flood in the house, or what was that kind of, how did that homecoming feel about it?
It was strange because it had to be, obviously, because of the rules and social distancing. It was quite strange for it to be so empty, but there was a little bit of noise. I mean, and when we scored, I mean, trouble is when you score a goal, you can only kind of like hear the people around you anyway for the noise. I mean, it's quite weird sometimes, and one of the most unfortunate things you'll ever hear is when at St James Park for me is when the visiting team score, because you hear it, you hear all of it. But when you're a home supporter, you just hear the noise around you. But yeah, it was good. It was a little bit quiet, but it was going to be. But you know, it was nice to be back.
I'm interested to ask you about the volunteering, because that's another thing in the debate on well-being, you know, that is generally good for human beings, is to be part of a bigger project, to be collaborating with other people, to feel like you're giving back as well as receiving, all of those things that kind of voluntary action and voluntary work bring. Is that something, would you say, like at Exeter, because the Supporters Trust is so prominent, you have more volunteering than other football clubs? And what do people do? What do they get out of it? What's going on for you there?
I think it's a part of I wouldn't say it's a Dunkirk spirit, but it is. It's the journey we've been on. You know, where we had nothing, we were nearly gone, and people were just, you know, putting themselves, you know, in there into, you know, to do things just to help. I mean, we've got some ladies that used to be up at the Clifford Hill training ground. They cook the meals for the players, do it for free. Someone painting the crash barriers, things like that. We have ambassadors on a match day that volunteer. And while those people are priceless, the price to the club, I believe, I can be corrected, is about £250,000 a year.
Okay.
We save.
So that's quite a chunk.
We save because of the fantastic core of volunteers we have.
What is your annual turnover?
I can't tell you that. It's that amount of money. I mean, you know, if nowadays, I mean, our trust chairman Nick, he's always said, you know, most of the time the money that's earned, more often than not, ends up on the pitch. So if you think £250,000 a year, you know, that's some players or some facilities or something that the club can then afford by virtue of these people that do all this fantastic work for us.
And of course, the other thing that is really good for everyone's well-being is playing sport and doing exercise and whatever it is that turns you on. And I wonder, what's the role of Exeter City Football Club in promoting and supporting grassroots football in the city? How does that? Is there a connection there for you?
Yeah, we've got every club's got a charity arm. Ours is City Community Trust, and it's quite strange that in this program I've got dated 2003, it used to be called Football in the Community, and the officer, and he's actually still here now, is Jamie Vittles. He's in this program and he's still at the club now with the City Community Trust. So, you know, that's another sort of like testament to us that we're doing the right thing. I mean, they go into schools, they do the, you know, the holiday football courses, you know, at half term when your kids turn up and play football, they do that sort of thing. I mean, I was very privileged to go and visit some people, brilliant people. They run a power chair soccer team. That's people obviously wheelchair soccer, but it's people that maybe haven't got the use of their arms, and it's a power chair, and that was a brilliant thing. And these people are sort of like representing the Exeter City Football Club, and for them to have someone from the club come and visit them was, you know, something amazing for them, and it made them probably feel quite valued as well, and part of the team, part of the bigger thing that's going on at Exeter City Football Club.
Sounds great. Do you do a lot of these schemes? Not surprisingly, are aimed at kids and teenagers, and you know, to some extent, as we know, football is a younger person's game. I certainly find that myself. But you know, there's also older folks, and one, you know, really amazing well-being football connection I've seen in the last few years is walking football, as the, you know, a way of getting folks who've really not been doing a lot of exercise but love football. Here's the low bar to entry. We can start here. Is that something that you've come across, or that Exeter City does?
We have got a walking football team.
Maybe you could explain to the audience who aren't maybe not familiar with it. How does it work?
I believe I can now qualify, because I believe walking football was actually created for the over 50s. So, but I don't think I've got the pace for it. It is a case of, you know, we don't want to be, you know, the days of lung busting runs for most people are well and truly over. So walking football is exactly what it says on the tin. You know, you have a referee, you have to be at a walk or a brisk walk, no running. You know, it is, and I suppose that sort of like gets you more focused on the finer arts of football, which is like passing and moving, not at pace, but moving. And you know, you can't sort of like go past someone and put a cross in. So I think it's more of a thinking man's game, isn't it? You know, walking football, because your mind's got to be a little bit quicker to work out where your pass is going to go and how. Are
you allowed to kick the ball up in the air, or it's all on the ground?
I'm not 100% sure, but usually they play it on a five-a-side pitch, so maybe five-a-side will fly. But another thing we do that we've signed up for as well is the Man v Fat program, which is encouraging people
tell us more.
to lose weight. It's encouraging people to, through football to lose weight and get healthier. And I suppose it's something that you're there, I think, and it's one of those things that there's kind of like, it's a level for everyone, because everyone's there for the same reason. They want to get a little bit fitter, they want to get a bit healthier. So there's going to be no, skinny winger that's going to do every 5 minutes, and so that's another thing as well that we do. And so it's promoting well-being, it's promoting health as well. And I think that that goes on Clifford Hill as well. The Clifford Hill, is our training facility,
right? And what about on the diet side? Because bless English football, I love it, but the food is generally not terribly healthy. Let's not kid ourselves. Has there been any move at Exeter City to kind of change a little bit? I mean, it's not going to be Forest Green Rovers where you've got all the players signed up to vegan diets, but I wonder if that kind of change in our collective lives and attitude to well-being is finding its way into Exeter City's life.
It has been discussed. I don't know how far down the track we are with it, because obviously there's so many different facets within the club that are doing things. The trust board is just one cog in a very large machine, but it has been discussed. I mean, it's we're going, I can't remember where it was, and I'd best not remember because they might sort of do me for standard, but there's somewhere I went and you could buy the pie, and it was a pie and it just didn't look very nice, and I think they must have grilled it because it was burning hot on the outside.
Grilled the pie?
Huh?
They grilled a pie?
No, it felt like it was grilled because the outside of it was red hot, burning hot. You could hardly touch it. The inside was still frozen. And I'm just thinking, some kind of baked Alaska pie, and, things, people like that sort of thing, but we have to offer more choice. Like I say, that the people that are coming to football is changing. I mean, I think someone said to me a while ago that it was basically white middle-aged men and their kids, and it's not that anymore. They've got so many more, women, girls coming to football, children, coming with their families, and we've got to cater for everyone. I think, and like I say, on the side of well-being, health is a part of well-being. So we can be a bit healthier and cater for people that want to be a bit healthier, then we should. Yeah. Because I suppose on the financial side of it, if we're not doing it, someone down the road might be doing it, and we'll be losing that footfall. So they won't come into our ground and see what we've got to offer until 5 to 3 before the game kicks off.
What is the current offering, broadly speaking, at Exeter City?
We have a farm foods van. It's so like country, like pork baps, things like that.
Yeah, hog roast.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah. Not like sometimes you get these sausages you buy in a pack of 100 for 30p or something, but they are decent farm fare. Sausages, the sausages. We do things like the hot dogs as well, beers and soft drinks, teas, coffees, that sort of thing. I can remember one of the best things we used to have was the old, what we used to call the old grandstand. It's been pulled down now. We've got a nice shiny new stand. I used to love taking my boys in there because at half time they'd knock up these amazing like hot chocolates with the cream and the marshmallows on the top, and that would be their half time. And that sort of thing is part of the ritual you go through. I thought, only once a fortnight they can have that, and calories in it, so what? It's fine.
No, nothing wrong with the occasional treat. I do, as a vegetarian, slightly struggle with the meat dominated. Though I have noted at Bristol City they now have a vegan pie of the month, which has proved to be really, really very popular. And actually the best thing I've ever eaten at a football game was in Israel, where you get falafel and hummus, and the wrap actually not only has the falafel and hummus, but it has chips in it as well, all stuffed in one thing. Completely knockout, and totally vegetarian, obviously. Not sure it's entirely healthy.
Serious amount of carb loading.
Pretty serious. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Carb loading, a lot of protein. Just just a lot of really good, tasty food.
And I think even the players get little treats because we do the trust also organised stadium tours. Well, was it? They did, but that would be free. You know, you could email and you could turn up. I think it's about 11 o'clock in the morning. You get a tour of the stadium and what was going on. And I think there was like some guys walking around in the away team, and I can't remember who they were. They were unpacking and that, and they were doing the tour. They said, "It's all right if we come in," and they said, "Yeah, fine, come in." And they opened up their kit bags and all that, and they had bags and bags of Haribos for the players. and the kids were there. They sort of are giving the kids these little bags of Haribos. But I think that's probably just like a bit of a sugar hit for the players, just to get them a little bit. But yeah, and it's just things like that, and you know, they eat pizzas now after the game, and you know, things like that. So you know, these are supposed to be these.
We're thinking about health here and well-being, you know, not surprisingly in quite kind of physical terms, but of course, you know, mental health is a really huge issue. And this year, you know, football's actually become much more engaged with issues of mental health. I was really struck. Was it earlier this year or late last year where there was like a whole week of football engaging in mental health issues? And Danny Rose, you know, who I think was still at Tottenham at the time, was very public about his own struggles with depression and indeed with racism, and the two not being unconnected. And, you know, just talking to people about speaking out about these kind of things. I just wonder, is that a place that Exeter City has gone, particularly because, as we know, you know, middle-aged men are basically, you know, the number one group for suicides in this country, and they're not speaking up when they're troubled. And there's a lot of them. That demographic is at football, and I just wonder, is that a place Exeter City has gone over the last year or two?
This is another one for CCT, City Community Trust. There's a group called, and they're nationwide. I think they're called Andy's Man Club, and that's specific for men. They'll find a venue. I mean, I live in Newton Abbot in Devon, and there is one that operates here, and the community trust they've signed up to that as well. You know, for men to go, you know, have a coffee, you know, meet their peers and speak to them, you know, about their mental health. I mean, you know, there's people, you know, maybe going through trauma, like a breakup, or the stress of, you know, what's been happening this year. It's been such an odd year, and the amount of pressure probably of some people, like men who are maybe the providers for their families, and you know, they may be feeling, you know, inadequate. They may have been furloughed. You know, they're losing 20% of their wages, and you know, these things will get on top of men, and we need to get past this idea that these men have to be these big, strong, tough people, because that burden alone is probably could, you know, crush someone. So, you know, that's a CCT thing. They do the Andy's Man Club. I don't know if it's on at the moment. I think under, you know, the current restrictions, it's not. But we have that as well. We're part of that as well, trying to, you know, get as far as we can into the community and look after people's well-being that way. Yeah,
I'm always struck by sometimes how good, certainly when I've been down in my time, what a good place a football stadium can be if it's a familiar thing. I don't know if you've ever read John Crace's memoir of being a Tottenham supporter. He's a Guardian columnist who's struggled with depression during his life, and also sort of like panic attacks. And he finds going to football is a kind of huge release from all of that. I think it's that place where you stop thinking about yourself and your own state, and you're part of something bigger. And he writes very movingly on how powerful a kind of aid to his own recovery going to Tottenham would be. And I think that's through some quite bad seasons as well. It's not about it's not about the glories and the highs. It's about the sort of just incredible communality. And I don't know about this, how you're feeling about this, Doug. I was thinking about it when you described going back to Exeter. There's a kind of physicality about being in the crowd as well. It's about the noise, it's about the smells, and it is also about the kind of closeness. You rub shoulders with people in a football crowd, and the rules are different. I mean, if you kind of, you know, were like that in close proximity to people in a shopping centre, they'd be calling the security. But in a football terrace, the rules are kind of different. And there's a really lovely intimacy about it in our, our quite uptight body culture. It's something that I miss, and I wondered, did you in a way miss that with everybody still socially distanced?
It was strange. I mean, obviously I was allowed to sit next to my son because obviously we're bubbled, and so I had someone to talk to. But I think, like you said about people going to football on their own, I think it would have been strange to have to go to a football match on my own and be sat just with no one, within, obviously 6 square feet of you, and just, I think it wouldn't have been enjoyable. I don't think. Yeah, you do sort of like get engrossed in the game and you start watching the game, but sometimes when the ball's out of play, you'll look, and that's when you maybe have that interaction with the guy next to you that you've never met before, and you talk about, that was very good, or we should have done this, because we're all great at football when we're watching, aren't we? Oh yeah, we should have done that. And so that sort of, it is that sort of intimacy you say that, it was lacking, but it was good to be back. And I think there was, for me, and I think everyone that turned up yesterday, it was a credit to them how everyone understood. There was an understanding there that, this is how it's got to be. If we had our choice, of course we do it differently, but there is no choice. The rules at the moment are the rules. And I think everyone sort of like embraced it as much as they could, got behind the team as best they could, and just made do. And I think that's what football supporters have always done. I think you have that optimism at the beginning of the season, and then it starts waning and waning and waning, and you think, well, sometimes you do think, oh, that will do. You've got a draw, that will do. And sometimes we do. We're content with our lot. Football. I think lower league football supporters are very happy with what they've got.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of again, there's a lot of contentment and well-being to come from realistic kind of appreciation of what one has. On that note, I'm conscious we've been talking for about half an hour now, and I think our moderators, I know we have some more poetry to come and perhaps an opportunity for a Q&A. So I'm wondering whether we want to go to that, the moderators who are in charge. I can't see you or speak to you, whether you want to do that.
Hi, David.
Hi, Heather.
And thanks so much for you and Doug talking through us with that. It was brilliant. I was wondering, Doug, actually, did you notice you talked a bit about football and connection and that sort of sense of community? Would you say that you noticed as the supporter ownership became more a part of Exeter, did you notice that increased or that changed, that sense of community?
I think it did increase. I think, like I said, I think sometimes when you come close to losing something, it makes you appreciate it a lot more. And I think there is the way we do things, I think, is what endears us to our fans. We try doing things the right way. We play football the right way. We don't try and I'm not trying to disparage other clubs. We don't try and con the referee. We don't, waste time. We try and do things correctly. And I think that's why when it comes to trust ownership model as well, we do things appropriately. We live within our means, which a lot of clubs don't. And I found out a statistic the other day. There's a club, if we could just say their nickname rhymes with the fictitious indie band The Dead Revels. Their debt is so high, just to pay the interest on the debt they've had for the last 10 years, they could give away every seat in their stadium for every home match for the last 8 years, and it wouldn't cover it. And that's the sort of thing that we don't want to do. We don't want to get into debt. We don't want to be living beyond our means. And I think our fans accept that. And I think that's part of us, the way we do things. We do things correctly.
Debt's very bad for one's health. Yes. People with debt. I mean, no joke. I think this is well known. high levels of debt, high levels of stress are a sure way to make you more unwell and more unhappy. And I think that goes for institutions as well as individuals.
I've got a question from the audience from Rob, who says, fans always want success, but is there a danger that success can lead to a disconnection with the supporters? What do you think?
Well, go on, Doug.
I think the pursuit of success is dangerous. I mean, you look at the Premier League with all the riches that are there, and I think some of their supporters. Look at Solskjaer at the moment. He must be on his last legs, and he's not doing that bad. And the success, the demand that you win every game, and you win trophies, and you do this and you do that. I mean, I think the fans put the pressure on themselves sometimes, because they seem to demand. We're spending billions and billions. We're paying this guy X amount of money every week, and he won't even run back. And I think they're creating their own turmoil. Some of them, I think, sometimes success. And
what is success? As we know, it's like, what does that mean? It all depends who you are. I mean, at Bristol Rovers, it's like maybe not being in the relegation struggle as early as this in the season. Maybe February would have been better. I mean, I think the whole success obsession with winning thing in football is a bit of a kind of myth we tell ourselves, because most football is about losing. Only one team wins the league. Everybody else loses. There's so much losing going on in football, leavened only by so much drawing going on, and there is some winning, but much of the winning is Pyrrhic, or irrelevant, or in the end doesn't count for that much. And I think actually, if it were the case that it really, really was about winning and success, like who'd be going to it? No one would be going to Exeter City. Certainly nobody would be going to Bristol Rovers. Like, we're not fools. We do know we're not going to win most of the time. We're sure as hell not going to the Premier League. But that's kind of, and we love it when we do win. Don't get me wrong, right? That's part of the fun and part of the game. But I'm not sure it's the primary thing. I think you're right, Doug. Like, for teams who are really at the top, who have insane amounts of money and, some reasonable expectation of actually winning something, they do get into these obsessive, blinkered cycles. But I think a lot of lower league football, I mean, like, what is success for Crystal Palace? Staying in the Premier League, or Burnley, what is success for Burnley? It's not really winning. It's just like staying in the Premier League, isn't it? And I think there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that in football.
I went to a Sports Direct conference. I think it was a couple of years ago now, because obviously they've changed to an FSA. And we were talking. We had different supporters trusts, maybe not owners, but trusts. I think we had someone from St Mirren. Rochdale were amazing guys. They actually had their trust application form on a beer mat that they used to give to pubs, and there you go. That's just the quirky little thing that I enjoy, and you listen to some of them, and I think we were challenged on the trust board, and I think it was a club board as well, is to answer the question, what does success look like? And I can remember seeing some of them, someone would say, well, I think the guy from, St Mirren was probably thinking, yeah, well, we want to be in the Scottish Premiership, we're in the top half of that. And I think a lot of the really smaller clubs, and, like I said, back to, the owners of last resort, some of these trusts, I think some of them was their club to actually be here tomorrow would be a success,
Yeah, exactly.
And, with money being pulled, towards like salaries and the big clubs, you know, these players getting quite a lot of money and things like that. The money has to come from somewhere. Some of these clubs just haven't got it. I mean, you look at, you know, I mean, Macclesfield, you know, they've gone. I think, you know, I mean, Bury, the story of Bury was, unfortunately, I think may have been a story of complete mismanagement. But, you know,
well,
I
think
mean,
Macclesfield has had some pretty disastrous management over the years as well.
Yeah.
I mean, as you know, football, particularly in the lower leagues, is full of, you know, bullshitters, over optimists, and, you know, wide boys. There's an awful lot of all three of those who have taken clubs, you know, into terrible circumstances. I mean, Exeter, you know, had the same deal, was at Wrexham, you know, similar kinds of characters. There's been a lot of this over the years, and too much over promising, you know, which is, I think, a bit of a problem with our kind of culture as a whole. Too much over promising. You know, people need a little bit of realism, would be. I mean, you know, it's great to hope. I still love going, one couldn't do it. You know, there's nothing like the first game of the season in August when it's kind of a bit naughty, really, to be going to football anyway. And the sun is shining. And it's like, maybe, who knows? You know, that's a very, very delicious psychic and emotional moment. But I don't take it too seriously. I enjoy it for the moment and what it is, but like, can't let that one eat you up.
No, and I think, like I say, that's the good thing about, you know, why is football good for Exeter, and I think Exeter City Football Club is good for Exeter because, you know, we are trying to be a part of the community. No, not one person can make a decision on behalf of that club. You know, I mean, and I've always said, you know, when you look at directors and, you know, from other clubs, you know, the gallant knight charging in on his steed isn't necessarily there to save you. And I think sometimes you'll have, you know, these local businessmen will take over a football club, and then maybe their business savvy just seems to desert them because within 2 years they're in debt and the guy wants rid of it, but the money he's loaned to the club on the basis that he thought he's going to get twice as much back, he wants that, and then he'll go, and then we're back to the pounds again.
I've just seen a really great question, Heather, in the chat list, and I just thought I'd put it, Doug, which was, what about women's football? So where's Exeter City with women's football at all the different levels of the club?
Well, firstly, hi Martin, hope you're well. Martin was I'm the group leader of the community group within the trust, and Martin was before me, but he served his 9 years, and so he decided to retire to a golf course somewhere, I think, or venture onto other things. But yes, the Exeter City women's team is coming on. We were a bit of a mishmash. We went down, there wasn't much investment. CCT got hold of it, and I spoke about it in my hustings about we played a cup semi-final against Buckland Athletic. We played it at St James's Park. We let the women's team play at St James's Park. In return, they let all trust members get in for free, which was good. So that swelled the crowd. On that day, we lost 3-1. And I went to Buckland a few weeks ago for the return match, because obviously Exeter City had now been promoted. And we beat this, obviously, the same team, but obviously different personnel. We beat them 5-1. So there's progression there. And I think there's also, you know, the girls around Exeter, the young girls around Exeter are getting into football. We've got.
Do you have youth teams? Yeah, women's youth teams.
Development squads. There are development squads now for the women, the young women, girls within the club, and it's the first time I've ever seen it. I've got a friend on Facebook. He's bought a club shirt, and he's put the name of one of the women players on his shirt. So that someone to actually say, right, you know, because you'll see, like, most people on their shirt have their own name or someone from the men's first team on their shirt. And I think that's progress to have someone that's actually got one of the women's team names on his shirt. And I'm not going to say who it is, just in case they're watching you embarrassing. But that's a sign of progress, and it's a sign of inclusion as well. We want to make sure everyone is included at Exeter City.
Great. Thank you so much, Doug and David. And here's to many more years of the community growing for Exeter City. I think we're going to head back now to Rob for some more poetry. We just wait for Rob to come back on screen now.
Aha.
Hi, Rob. Hiya.
Hello.
We actually have a question for you from the audience, which I'll pass on to you. So, Simon asks, do you ever write poems during the actual course of a match to catch the live atmosphere?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you, Simon, because I've been doing this for, as I say, 4 years. I've written over 100 poems, and I'm desperately trying to find some new ideas and new approaches and new techniques. So that's not something I've actually done. Yeah, I generally watch the games, and whilst I'm watching the games, I'm looking for inspiration of things to write about. Actually, I would really love the challenge of just spending a whole 90 minutes of just capturing my thoughts in real time, live, and then going with that and editing that. I don't know why I've not tried that before, but thank you, I will. And if you see that in one of the programs, then feel proud and take the credit for that, because I'll give that a go this season. So thank you for that idea.
Great, thanks, Rob. Over to you.
All right, thank you. So yeah, we're in the kind of final section of the evening, and it's one of my favourite times in a football season, and indeed in a match, is that last little bit, the last few games of the season, or the last 5 or 10 minutes of a match is. So I feel honoured to be able to kind of close the evening as well as start it off, because this is the time that Alex Ferguson once titled wonderfully poetically "Squeaky Bum Time," and I love Squeaky Bum Time, so I did write about that. So this first of this final set is called "Squeaky Bum Time." Are you sitting comfortably? You might not be for long. One kick could save the season now, or make it all go wrong. One moment could change everything. One goal to make it clear, when all will be decided. Yes, 'cause Squeaky Bum Time's here. It's said that fortune's with the brave, but rather them than me. I'm not sure I can even watch this date with destiny. So many dates have failed before, but could this be the one? I guess it's time to find out now, as Squeaky Bum Time's come. I'd really like a cushioned seat to keep the squeaks at bay. I've bought some Savlon just in case. I'm ready, come what may. My derriere might get the nerves start twitching all around, so brace yourself, for you might hear the squeaky bum time sound. Squeaky bum time once again, but this time much more squeaky. My cheeks are poised for action if the drama gets too freaky. Will I incur those friction burns? Perhaps. It all depends how many squeaks my bottom speaks when Squeaky Bum Time ends. So I believe this is the last event in Quay Words 2020 program, and it'll be a new year coming soon, when a whole new set of events will start in February. And I like to make New Year's resolutions every year. It has no impact on the football team, but I've decided to make my own New Year's resolutions as a fan. New Year's resolutions. In the new year, I won't get carried away when we win 2 games in a row and think that this is the dawning of a new era, something bigger than 2 wins in a row. It happens every time, I know. I won't get carried away when we don't win for a couple of games and think that this constitutes a crisis, or time at least for something new. Sometimes patience might well do. I won't get carried away by the folk in white coats for losing my cool with an official who dares to call a throw-in for the opposition. We all make wrong decisions. I won't get into pointless online arguments with away fans, with home fans, or even sometimes my earlier self. It's not good for my health. I will try to accept that players do know what they're doing when what they're doing differs from what I'm yelling, and that it's probably best that they follow the gaffer's instructions, not mine. That might just turn out fine. I will then go easy on myself for ignoring any of these intentions in the heat of the moment, and that breaking my own rule once should not mean giving up entirely. They're simple guidelines, to be fair, or else I wouldn't have a prayer. So I'm a bit of a well, I'm a football nerd. I'm a nerd generally, a football nerd, but in particular, I'm a formation nerd. I just love working out the different dimensions of the arrangements of players on the pitch. It's like a good game of chess, a good game of football. So this is all about that. It's called Reformation. We're shifting from our fluid 4-4-2 come 4-3-3 to see how a more liquid 5-3-2 come 3-5-2 come 3-3-2-2 will do. Though it might end up more 2-3-1-2-2 come 2-3-1-2-1-1 come 2-2-2-1-2-1 once we've begun. And then if we're down to 10 men, it's 4-3-2 come 2-5-2, or back to 3-4-2 come 3-3-3, though really 3-3-2-1 come 3-5-1, or 5-3-1 come 4-4-1, depending on the score. Ideally, our flat back four will switch to 3+2, making room for two more inside or one before the five, each tested and well tried. Unless we decide to mix it up, have three banks of 3+1 to make it Dutch, then concertina up the field. Or will that be too much? Perhaps let's keep it simple and try it the scattergun. So whichever way you look at it, we're 1-1, 1-1, 1-1, 1-1, 1-1. This next poem I wasn't initially planning to do, but when David and Doug started talking about the over 50s walking football, I thought, I've got a poem about that. So this was inspired actually by the time, I think it was last season, when Manchester City were initially banned from the Champions League. And I thought I'd put the two ideas together. So it's called Banned. We've been banned from the Champions League, which has dashed all our dreams of lifting AFC St Sidwell's up to the elite from the Charlie's Chips East Devon South West District over 50s walking football Sunday League Second Division, at least for a few more years. UEFA say our business model is somehow unsustainable, and we can't keep paying our players in leftover cider from Babacombe Bob's Brewery without claiming it as official sponsorship, which would take us over our spending limit and by some way, especially if you factor in how much Big Derek knocks back. And that's just at half-time. I hated breaking it to the boys. Kenneth was really looking forward to nutmegging Messi and trying out his scorpion kick at the San Siro. Now, his chances are zero, unless we appeal. Arthur's nephew reckons he can get the ban delayed, at least until we qualify, which should be relatively straightforward, but we'd need to crowdsource for the legal fees. I would go round with a bucket, but my knees need plenty of rest, so I guess I'll just set up a link online. If you've got time, I'd really appreciate all of your very generous support. Thanks in advance on behalf of all the gang. Hashtag, we're all going on a European tour. So as you probably figured out from earlier, I'm surprised that my wife puts up with me. One day I'm sure she'll give up and I'll have to find an alternative. So this piece was written when Exeter City were playing on Valentine's Day, and it got me thinking about a date to watch the football on Valentine's Day. Something that my wife didn't take me up on that particular occasion. It's called Love Story. We met online. We got on fine. Arranged a date. I couldn't wait. On Valentine's weekend as well, it was so perfect how things fell. But what to do? It's up to you, she said. Go for dinner? Walk instead? No? Cinema? A cafe? Bar? Oh, I don't mind, she said. You choose. surprised me. How could I refuse a treat like that? Somewhere to chat is all I ask. It wasn't such a daunting task, so I took her to watch Exeter City, of course. You, ever been to a game before? No, never, she said. I don't like football. I bought her Bovril and some chips. We ate in silence, apart from the chewing, obviously, which sounded louder than usual against the echoing awkwardness. It was cold. It started raining. But still, not even mild complaining, which made it better than any previous date I'd ever had. And then the match. The mighty Grecians. 90 minutes till completion. A decent game, if truth be told. I wondered if I'd had her sold. Well, did you have a lovely time? Oh yes, she said. My best in life. I want to come to all the games. There's really nothing like St. James's. Oh, wow, that's great. The perfect date. In some ways, yes, she said, I guess. And then she told me, to my pity, I don't like you, though. Only City. So, fans are back now, but not all of us. The ground's still kind of limited in terms of numbers, obviously. So many of us are watching online, just as this evening, this event has moved entirely online. So I've been watching the games on iFollow, and I wrote a poem about the experience of being there. There's nothing quite like being there, actually, physically, really, in the flesh. But sometimes with imagination, you can create the second best. Pre-match rituals are essential. Dress for the weather, but one layer too few. Make a rushed stop at a pub, then find yourself a queue, even if no one's in front of you. Keeping it authentic is key. Give away more money than you wanted to. Order a programme and skim through most of it, especially the poetry. Set your screen up outside. Get nice and uncomfortable with your sweatiest laundry piled up proper close. Breathe it all in. Get a Bovril and a burger and stick another seat in front so there's nowhere to put them. Spill some down yourself and leave it on your chin. Oh, that's perfect. Ask your neighbours to shout disagreeable opinions over the commentary. Constantly. Use an outside loo. Remember to queue. Give away more money than you wanted to. Look again at the programme, ignoring the poetry. Wish you'd brought another layer. Avoid all temptations to enjoy home comforts. This is match day. Keeping it authentic is key to really being there. Well, nearly. So I've just got one more poem for you this evening. Thank you very much indeed for having me. But I'll just take a little sip here because there's a little musical element to this one. Doug referred earlier to the lino and then immediately corrected himself to, sorry, I meant assistant referee. And that's very much what this one's about. For the cooler ones amongst you, you may well remember the Bee song by Arthur Askey. If you do, then you'll notice what this is about. If you don't, then I'm sure this will whet your whistle. So check out the Bee song by Arthur Askey. It's an absolute banger, and it's inspired this one. It's called More Than a Linesman. Oh, what a glorious thing to be, loyal assistant to the referee, ploughing my own little furrow, carrying my own little flag, forever scurrying sideways with the poise and grace of a crab. I'd like to be assistant referee, being just as busy as a ref could be, making important decisions like, has the ball gone out of play? Then when it has, it's in my hands to point the flag, whichever way. Oh, what a glorious thing to be, trusted assistant to the referee, judging the pivotal moments. Was that striker slightly offside? I say yes, the replays attest I was right. My heart swells with pride. I'd like to be assistant referee, being as important as a ref can be, spotting off the ball infringements, alerting the ref to my calls, but somehow he doesn't see it. so my judgment is overruled. Oh, what a glorious thing to be an advisory assistant referee. Raise my flag for the referee. Referee, shout if you like, but don't blame me. Wave my flag for the referee. Referee, scream if you like, but don't blame me. Scream if you like, but don't blame me.
Thanks very much, Rob. Nice to get some singing at the end as well.